All right, let me go into transaction or requirement number 8, which is asking that we determine the transaction type of every transaction on our transaction sheet based on the following criteria. If the transaction's operating margin is within plus or minus 20% of the average transaction for that particular industry, which is contained in our industry summary, right? If every transaction is below within 20 plus or minus percent of the average profit margin, then that transaction would be considered average. However, if it is below plus or minus 20% of the average transaction for 2018, then we're going to describe that as below average. If it's above 20% of the average transaction, then we're going to call that above average. Wonderful. So let me go into this. And by the way, this should have taken you about 5 minutes to complete because there's a lot of copy pasting that can be done. So let's go back to our transactions. We need to start with an if statement. And if you have done if statements before, an if statement says, if something is true, tell me what I'm supposed to display if this is true. So I'm basically doing is, if this is equal to 40815, tell me that this is true. Otherwise, tell me that this is false. Right? I'm going to make it very simple. This is not the actual answer. So if this is equal to 4A15, tell me that it's true. Otherwise, give me that it's false. Oh, it is not true because there's some sense actually associated with that. And I could keep going down. I don't think none of them are going to be true because, of course, there's more sense. So what I could have done is I could have said if round, right? If the round value of J2, no decimal, actually to 2 decimal places, right, equals to 4A14, tell me if it's true, and then that would have made it true. And let's see if there's any other 4A15. None of them. Oh, there's another one right here. Okay, see, there's another one right here. That's 4A15. That would have been true. So basically, an if statement. You open an if statement. First, we give it a logical expression that it's supposed to evaluate. Then we're going to tell them, right, or tell Google Sheet what to display if the condition has been met, and if it's not. All right. Now, in this case, it's going to be a little more complicated than that. So let's go ahead and start by saying an if statement where this value is greater than the value that we need to look up. So we have to combine our lookup value. So let me get rid of the if statement for now. And I'm going to do a lookup value to make it very, very easy. So let's do a VLOOKUP of the industry in this field. In which range? Well, let's go to the industry summary, and I can go in on range. I can go all the way to the end, or I can just go to the largest, or I can, whichever one. All of these are the same. So I'll make it simple. I'm just going to look at the ones that are necessary. So let me go ahead and do the lookup from A1 to G1, right? Then the lookup function is going to ask me, which column do you want to display? Well, I want to display the average profit margin. So that would be column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's my column number 7. And that's it. So I'm going to keep it simple for now. Let's display. So I didn't anchor it, and I made a mistake. All right. Let me anchor it first before I send it everywhere, and then I'm going to copy paste it in all my transactions. All this is doing is showing me the average transaction for this industry, for service, aerospace, professional services, etc. The question here is, we need to evaluate this operating margin and see if it's above the average, give or take 20% more, right? So this times 1.20 will be the amount that will determine if this transaction is above average. So now we can do an if statement saying, let me grab this entire lookup value, and I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to start all over again by saying, if this value is greater than my lookup value, right? It's 1.20%, then this is going to be an above average transaction. Otherwise, I can do another if statement if it's false. So if this J2 value is less than the lookup value, right? Then the industry average times 80%, right? Then this should be below average. Otherwise, we will consider that to be in the average length. And notice that I'm displaying text, so I need to make sure that I am wrapping that text within text quotation marks, right? All right, so see, it's a nested if value. If it's higher than 1.2 of the industry standard, then that should be above average because that's more than 20% of the average value for that industry. And if it's below 20% or meaning below 80% of the average standard or the average for that industry for the year 2018, then we will display below average. Otherwise, we're going to say average. And notice that all of these evaluations are based on the 2018 numbers that we summarize on the industry summary sheet. And it doesn't matter if the transaction is occurring in 2017, we're comparing it against the 2018 for simplicity purposes. And now I can just copy paste. Everything is anchored, so it should all work perfectly fine. And that kind of makes sense because most of the transactions average about 200 and something dollars. You can see the ones that are 591 to be above average. Should have made this 33% to make it more equally distributed. All right, and that's it. That's the end of this transaction. I hope that was helpful. I was going to let you guys do this on your own, but let's go ahead and get it wrapped up.